Wait, I'll get copyrighted! Marvel Rivals, one of the first good products Marvel has released in a decade. Today, we will be grading the characters to find out who's the best and who's objectively dookie doo-doo tier trash. I will showcase the characters, including the new characters released in Season 1, some good tactics, and some shenanigans. If you enjoyed this video, show some love by subscribing. Also, comment down below who your main is and why my opinions are trash. This tier list is purely my opinions, so don't let that discourage you from playing any characters you like. They're all good in their own right, and you can make them work in any way. This tier list doesn't have an order, so I'll mention whatever hero comes to mind first. With that said, let's get into the video. We'll start off with one of the newest heroes added to the game, Mr. Fantastic. Reed is a tanky DPS that can transform into a tank and cosplay Nikocado Avocado. He deals good mid-range damage with his primary attack, he can slingshot himself towards allies to block incoming damage, or towards opponents to deal damage, gaining 75 bonus health as he does it. He has a hook ability that he can use to dash towards the enemy, impacting them, or knocking them together. And then we have his shield ability, that soaks up incoming damage and releases it towards a chosen destination. And for some reason, this ability cancels out every single ult used against him, even Jeff the Shark's. His passive is that when he uses his abilities, he builds up elasticity that when reaching the max, momentarily transforms Reed into a tank, gaining 450 bonus health and a damage boost. Finally, his ultimate allows him to ground pound several times and deal massive area damage. However, in this form, Mr. Fantastic is incredibly vulnerable as he is a huge target and is actively in the middle of the enemy team. Overall, a good addition to the game. However, doesn't bring something unique to a team comp as he is more of a generalist, C tier. Adam Warlock is a stupid fucking name. But his kit is pretty good. He heals decently, he can spam projectiles for massive damage, and he can revive your whole team just to piss off the enemy team. You either get a really good Adam on your team that carries the game, or a really bad one that does almost nothing. There is no in between. As for movement, there isn't a lot to offer, as he is pretty immobile. B tier, because he gets easily outclassed by other supports. SpiderMan is really hard to play. Sure, he's the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, but on the battlefield, he's a fucking menace.
Gonna get sticky for you.
His entire role is to be a backline assassin, swooping in, getting an elimination, and then escaping. Playing Spider-Man is kinda like playing Street Fighter. If you miss your combos, you're dead. Spider-Man's melee is a 1-2 kick that deals a lot of damage, and his right-click attack is a long-distance attack that throws webs at the enemy and is the most important part of his kit. When you hit an enemy with your right-click, they get this icon above their heads, and if you attack an enemy with this icon above their heads, you get a damage boost for the next attack used. This ability also impacts his Get Over Here ability, which drags enemies towards you if they don't have the debuff, or catapults you towards them if they do have the debuff. He has an uppercut attack that launches the enemy upwards, and an ult that slings his webs in a small area around the player, damaging all nearby enemies. All these abilities can be chained together to deal massive damage towards enemies. And then you have your movement abilities, which are the classic web slings that get you to the other side of the map within seconds, and his wall climbs, which is great for ambushing players. Overall, this hero is great. However, he is incredibly hard to use, as you need to combo your abilities to deal the highest amount of damage. If you do, however, manage to land all your hits, then he could kill most characters within seconds. Overall, a really strong character, but can be overcomplicated for some players. C tier. I never see Black Panther players because they keep flying everywhere. Their whole shtick is that they refresh their dash every 3rd second. Dashing into an enemy with Vibranium's mark gives you your dash back. Popping your ult gives you your dash back. and the ult even gives nearby enemies Vibranium's mark, giving you your dash back. Now, they did nerf him in the new season, reducing the total bonus health gained from 120 to 75 through refreshing his Vibranium marks. But he's still a really good DPS despite these changes. It only reduced his survivability, A tier, because he's hella fun but is really hard to master. God bless America and its ass. Captain America is a pretty solid tank, having lots of maneuverability, long range attacks, and damage negation. His strengths lie in that he is good at engaging fights and disengaging them when the situation looks dire. However, there is one glaring flaw in his character. He literally does no damage. You can be fisting an enemy for a whole minute and they'd still be standing there. The only reason you're able to kill them is because they can't kill you because of your massive 675 HP. He also has abysmal cooldowns, which are almost all over 10 seconds long. Now, they did give him a pretty sizable buff this season, increasing his ult movement speed, giving him additional health, decreasing the time the shield recovery starts, and decreasing his Liberty Dash cooldown. This buff gives Captain America a lot more survivability for teamfights, which is what he needed. All around a pretty cool kit, but lacks the damage and ability cooldown to make it work properly. B tier. Hulk is a really neat tank with a lot of versatility. His main form is Banner, who is pretty weak, essentially being a twink with a gun. But after charging up his ult, he can turn into the Hulk, and vice versa if the Hulk goes down to 0 health. His Hulk form does have some utility, allowing him to give his teammates a temporary shield that charges his ult and an ability that immobilizes his opponents. They did decrease his shield's health this season, but I don't think many people will notice. The Hulk's ult allows him to become supercharged and deal extra damage with all his abilities. The most notable change is that your ultimate becomes Breaker, which smashes your opponents into the ground. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but it gives you style points. Your clap also goes down on a lower cooldown, so you can deal massive damage with it. His team-up abilities are also pretty busted, boosting Doctor Strange's damage and negating his anti-heal when he reaches 100 dark magic. He also gives Iron Man a damage boost, almost allowing him to one-shot anyone. All around a very solid hero with a lot of versatility. A tier. Next up is the cutest thing in the entire game. Jeff the Landshark. Jeff the Landshark isn't a support hero. He's an emotional support hero, and I need one of these suckers in my everyday life. Jeff is an incredibly good healer, being able to lay out bubbles that heal allies and give them speed boosts. These bubbles also linger, so you can throw them out for later usage. Jeff can also submerge himself in the ground to escape enemies, or just be a dick about it. And then we have the ult, and by God, I have a lot to say about it. His ult is the funnest part of the kit, allowing you to trap teammates and enemies in your jaws, then throwing them out somewhere else. Now, there are two different types of Jeff players. The ones that trap the entire enemy team and throw them off the map, and the ones that trap your entire team and throws them off the map. And if you're the latter, I hope you get crushed by Captain America's dump truck ass. C tier. Alright, let's just cut to the chase. This is literally just Widowmaker. They're both highly mobile, sniper characters with high sex appeal. They literally have the same abbreviation when you make callouts. You either get one that sweeps the entire enemy team, or one that misses every single shot, but 99% of the time, it is the latter. Dookie tier. Doctor Strange is an incredibly good tank with good versatility, a broken kit, and an infinite potential for shenanigans. His portal ability allows you to pull off some incredibly stupid plays, like teleporting enemies off the map, creating a portal directly onto the objective, or even teleporting an ulting teammate directly onto the enemy team. His ult also allows you to freeze enemies in place, making them watch you as you off them one by one. His shield also allows you to block all incoming projectiles, and forms an impenetrable shield if you combine it with other heroes like Magneto. Doctor Strange was nerfed this season, making his shield recovery rate slower and giving him a bigger damage falloff, but that isn't preventing him from being the best tank in the game. S tier. Groot. I love this character. He only has one voice line and all the other ones are just variations of his first line. Imagine getting paid thousands of dollars just to say,
I am Groot,
a couple of times. Groot's kit involves isolating enemies and dealing crowd damage. His main ability is that he can erect walls that can isolate enemies and or damage and heal surrounding players, depending on which wall he puts up. Now that I think about it, we never got to see where Groot was when the Mexican border was put up.
I am Groot.
All around, a really fun character that I would recommend playing at least once. A tier. Ah, Squirrel Girl. The only character to get a nude mod within the first 3 days of release. What the fuck? Squirrel Girl is stupidly fun to play, having a primary attack that shoots nuts that bounce and deal burst damage. She has a tail bounce that gives her high vertical movement and a lockdown ability where she throws a giant nut at the enemy. She has an additional ability that refreshes one of her abilities, allowing her to throw an additional nut or jump again. And her ult is the funniest one in the game, sending a literal army of rodents towards the aimed direction. My personal favorite way to use this ult is to send the squirrel army off a cliff. Squirrel Girl did receive a buff this season, making her ult target the nearest enemy after hitting a wall and reducing the ult health from 600 to 300. And honestly, I didn't even know you could damage the ult. I just kinda sidestepped it. A really cool character to play in casual matches, and is probably the character that's gonna be used the most in phase trickshot montages. C tier. Hela is the goddess of death, and just like her godly domain, she's here to fucking kill you. Her whole kit is made to make you feel pain, even dealing damage when you're dead. She can almost kill you in 2 normal attacks, she can group up enemies with a soul drainer, and then fire her piercing knight to damage all clustered enemies. And her ult literally turns her into an AC-130 gunship. This character has 2 passives. 2. One of them turns your corpse into a bomb, and the other gives her a permanent potion of levitation. She has a massive get out of jail free card in her shift ability that turns her into a crow and lets her escape scot-free. Her team-up ability is also incredibly busted, allowing an allied Thor and Loki to respawn at their place of death, meaning they just get thrown out of battle for 10 seconds and come back at almost full HP. They did, however, nerf her this season, and you wanna know what they did? They removed 25 HP. Yup, and took away 5% of her damage. That's it. Nothing else. Now, sure, you can't 2-shot enemies anymore, but she still deals an incredibly high amount of damage. S tier. Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist, Iron Man, or as he's commonly known, press Q to wipe the team, is an okay DPS. He has free mobility to move around in a 3-dimensional space, he has his primary and secondary fire, and an ability that boosts the damage of his normal attacks, and an AoE attack that damages enemies for an okay amount of damage. And then there is the ult. Need I say more? Iron Man is pretty bad normally, but if you team him up with Hulk for the Gamma Overdrive team up, he becomes marginally better, almost one-shotting someone with a secondary fire. His only problem is that he gets hard countered by heroes like Hawkeye and Hela, who you almost see every game. B tier. Penny Parker. She is literally a Gundam. I would not be surprised if I saw her in Evangelion. A really good vanguard that has a lot of crowd control and area denial. Her primary fire are cannons that can fire at long ranges with infinite ammo. She can shoot out web snares that stun enemies, or can be placed around the map, where she can lay concealed mines. She can also place down a spider web that encapsulates an entire area that heals Penny and grants extra movement speed. The spider web also shoots out small spider drones that damage nearby enemies. She has a lot of movability with her Cyberbond ability, allowing her to sling herself to patches of web she has placed out. Additionally, she can run on walls if she holds down space, and her ultimate allows her to run for 10 seconds, launching enemies on her path. While running, she deploys her spiderwebs, mines, and drones continuously that damage all enemies caught inside the web. She's pretty good at countering dive combos and characters like Hulk and Wolverine, but outside of that, she doesn't have a lot of utility. C tier. Loki is not the god of mischief, he is the god of drip. This man pulls up to the battlefield with the drippiest fit imaginable, while everyone else pulls up in Halloween costumes. I would put him in S tier purely because of his fit. However, we're here to grade his kit, and his kit is hella fun. You can turn off your brain when firing your normal attacks since he heals teammates and damages enemies, and he can throw down a circle that heals allies and converts all incoming damage into additional healing. But now we get to the fun part, his doppelgangers. You can place down clones that mimic all your main abilities, except cloning, and you can switch places with these clones whenever you want. You can also turn invisible and just sneak away from any danger. And then we have the ult. Oh boy. The ult allows you to copy any character on the map and use all of their abilities for 15 seconds. That means you can turn into any character with a one-shotting ability and use it for free. His kit is busted. The enemy has no time to react and they cannot predict what you're gonna do. I would put him in the S tier purely because his drip is on fleek, his kit is amazing, and he is the funnest hero to play in the game. But there are better support characters than him, and he is just made to troll the enemy. A tier. No, I do not have dyslexia. That is her name. Magic is one of the funnest melee heroes in the game, swinging around a massive ass sword and giving all nearby enemies a healthy dose of scoliosis. Her kit is pretty good. She has a dash ability that knocks up enemies, another one that makes her temporarily invincible, and the passive that converts damage dealt to healing, essentially meaning that if you don't deal more damage than her, you're fucked. She also has several abilities related to her portal ability, like summoning a simp that does gradual damage, and a spin attack that attacks enemies in a 360-degree radius. And then we have her ultimate form, and oh my. Guys will literally just see this and type wife. Wife. Wife, 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 wife. Her ult form allows her to enhance all her abilities, increasing the range of the simps, increasing the damage of the ranged attack and the knock-up ability, and doing 2 additional slashes in her swing attack. She also has a pretty good team-up ability, giving Black Panther and Psylock an ability akin to Tracer's recall ability from Overwatch. But forcing these characters into a dive comp isn't the best, as you sacrifice a lot of versatility that you could get with other picks. She's a really good pick if you know how to play her. However, she lacks a lot of versatility and can't dive in properly without dying or getting extremely low. B tier. Coming all the way from South Korea, we have our resident K-pop idol, Luna Snow. She is by far the best support character in the game, being able to heal plenty, has lots of utility support, and can even deal immense damage. She heals allies that she hits with her normal attack, she can throw an aura on a teammate that gets healed whenever you heal someone else, and her passive allows her to heal herself every time she uses her shift ability or right click. She can even freeze enemies in place when using her right click, being able to lock down mobility characters. And she even has a second passive that gives her wheelies that boost her movement speed and jump height. Her ultimate is the best part of her kit, not only because you essentially become immortal, but because you can mod the ult song to be whatever you want. So imagine running down Royal Palace and blasting Caramel Dancing. Luna also has 2 additional team-up abilities, the first one boosting Namor and Jeff's damage output, and the second one with Ironfist, giving her an additional ability that heals and knocks away opponents. All around a great support and damage dealer. S tier. Moon Knight has way too many abilities. They're not overpowered, but there's just too many. He has more movement abilities than actual attacks, so his whole playstyle is to reposition himself and then spam his primary fire at the enemies. Literally the embodiment of the random bullshit go comic panel. He has his rising leap that gives him a double jump, his moonlight hook which gives him a grappling hook, and then his gliding ability that allows him to glide for long distances. A lot of moon ability, but then we get to his attacks. His primary fire shoots out darts that ricochet off opponents onto others, dealing a lot of crowd damage. And his ancient Ankh knocks enemies towards its center and ricochets darts off the center onto nearby enemies. So you could just stand still and hurl your darts at it while the enemy just runs into it. And finally, we have his ult that deals massive area damage and blasts a banger tune.
The moon haunts you.
Moon Knight is a pretty good character all around, being good at running behind enemy lines and being a constant thorn in their sides. However, he doesn't provide a lot of support to his team. His kit wants him to move to a higher advantage point, which will isolate him from his team. B tier.
Who wants to see something fantastic?
Susan Storm is the most recent addition, adding nothing but cake to the game. Susan is a support character that, as you guessed it, supports. Her primary fire is a unique attack that returns to Susan when it reaches its max distance, damaging or healing allies twice. She has a shield that she can put up in front of allies, protecting them and giving them healing over time. She has an ability that pushes or pulls opponents, and an area denial ability that sucks enemies in and deals a stupid amount of damage. And as for her movement abilities, she has a double jump, and her passive makes her invisible after being out of combat for a few seconds. Finally, her ult creates a force shield which makes allies invisible for anyone outside the force field, and healing all allies inside over time. Now, the easiest way to counteract the force shield is just to spam projectiles or walk inside, which could pave the way forward for some funny tactics, like booby trapping the ult with Penny Parker's mines. Overall, her kit is incredibly cool. S tier. Hawkeye is stupidly broken. He has so many abilities that he for once isn't useless. He's the fucking main character. High projectile damage that can headshot, AoE attacks, a parry, a double jump and dash, a melee ability that knocks opponents away, a disruption ability that knocks flying heroes down, and an ult that lets you see in the past tense and see hero after images that can be damaged even when they're out of your line of sight. Even his team-up ability with Black Widow is broken, as it allows her to see the enemy's after images too, making her slightly less useless, but still useless. His whole kit is specifically made to make you rage quit, because you just can't get close enough to kill him. Now, he did receive a nerf this season, reducing his passive range and passive damage from 80 to 70 damage, but he can still one-shot you if he's close enough. I don't know what NetEase thought when they designed this character, but it is no longer an underdog story if the character has the abilities of the whole character cast. A tier. Venom is one of the funnest heroes in the game, a highly mobile tank with high amounts of damage and a bunch of abilities made to piss off the enemy backliners. Their primary attack shoots out a burst of tendrils that attack the enemy, dealing high amounts of damage, including headshots. They can swing around like Spider-Man, dash into the enemy team knocking enemies up, and then use a slow that deals damage to nearby enemies. There are other abilities that you can generate bonus health based on how much damage you've taken. They also have a shittier Jeff ult, but it gives you bonus health based on how much damage you deal. They did buff Venom majorly this season by increasing his ult damage from 40 to 50 and then buffing his symbiotic resilience ability, going from giving him 100% extra bonus health to 120. So if you thought Venom was already annoying to kill, now he's built like the Great Wall of China. All around a really fun character that you can turn off your brain while using and have fun. Definitely my favorite tank in the game. They are a great dive character that can cause a lot of disruption, but outside of that, they aren't that great. I would definitely put them in the S tier for fun and A tier for usage, but in the current state of the game, they're in the C tier. I'm sorry, sweet prince.
Psylock's sword remains sharp.
Lord have mercy. Psylock is a really good DPS, however, sucks at flanking because of her clapping ass cheeks keeps alerting the supports. If you play Psylock without this skin, I am judging you hard. Psylock has a primary fire that reduces the cooldown on all her abilities when they hit, which is just straight up broken. Her right click launches shurikens that stick onto enemies and grants bonus health, her shift is a dash that damages opponents when she passes through them, and her E turns her invisible for 3 seconds with bonus movement speed. And her ult is just a massive middle finger, as she becomes invincible and dashes around, slashing every opponent in a small radius. They did nerf her so that she now targets shields as well, but I don't think that's gonna affect her pick rates. Her entire kit is extremely fun as you can flank behind the enemy, get a pick, and get away scot-free with your dash and invincibility. A tier.
My power is a gift from Solal the Undying.
Ironfist is a really simple character. He's a good backline assassin that can deal high amounts of burst damage and blah blah blah. I ain't reading all that. Instead, I'm going to give you a much shorter description of the character. He do punchy punch against the enemy, and if he kills them, he gets health. If he pops his right click, he negates incoming damage and gets bonus health. When the right click is done, he can do his harder punchy punch, which hits like a truck. He has a dash ability that allows him to kick away enemies, he can cross his legs to heal whenever he wants, and he can run on walls and triple jump. You can tell I don't enjoy playing this character. He's just too much. His playstyle is fun, diving into enemy backlines and escaping, but Black Panther does that so much better than he does. His only saving grace is his team-up ability with Luna Snow, which makes her a way better support. As disheartened as I am, I'm placing Ironfist in the D tier. There are characters that do his job better, and he has a kit that takes a lot of time to master. The punching bag of this game. I can't even count how many times he has been killed in this video. Oh wait, I can. The Punisher is what I would call myself if my superpower was BDSM, but that unfortunately isn't the case. The Punisher is just a normal dude with the Second Amendment. In this game, you have gods, aliens, artificially engineered beings, and then you have this guy. Well, I guess Hawkeye is also just a normal guy, but he's built different. The Punisher has a rifle and a shotgun as his primary fire, giving you good close and long range options. He has a zipline that you can just launch yourself with, and a smoke grenade that blocks enemies' vision while leaping backwards. He also has a turret that he can place down, which deals immense damage, but makes him immobile and vulnerable. And for some reason, you can cancel ults with it. Then you have his passive, which allows you to see enemies behind walls for a few seconds, which is really good when someone tries to escape. And finally, we have his ult, which deals huge amounts of damage. However, his team-up ability with Rocket, while inside the ammo overload, deals the same amount of damage as his ult. So I don't know if that's a bug or intended, but keep that in mind when using him. All around, he's pretty good, but honestly, he's pretty bland. You can literally go into any other shooter game and have the same experience as playing the Punisher. Dookie tier on the fun scale, but A tier for being a reliable, consistent pick. Namor. I have literally never heard of this character before the game came out. Namor, or the Deep, can summon octopuses. Yep, I am not making this shit up. He can summon octopi that attack nearby enemies, and every time he hits an enemy with his primary attack, the cooldown for the octopus spawn gets reduced. Additionally, headshotting an enemy will cause the octopuses to go berserk, having an increased attack speed for a few seconds. His Wrath of the Seven Seas allows him to throw his trident, doing minor area damage, but this ability has the secondary effect of causing the octopuses to shoot a stronger attack and enter berserk mode. Okay, this is literally just the Deep and his octopus lover. Do I really need to continue reading the script? Alright, fine, but I'm not doing it because I want to. He can leap into the air and form a bubble that protects him, he can slowly descend downwards by holding space, and he can summon a whale as his ult? Who in the design team watched The Boys and made the Deep a playable character? A tier, because he's really good in-game and because he can find ambrosia and Storm, or as the devs call her, the Weather Witch, is a pretty mediocre DPS. Or was. In the beginning, she was more of a support character with shitty support abilities and damage capabilities. However, that changes as of Season 1, where she has become a menace. Who knew that changing her projectile speed and damage, and making her bonus health not immediately disappear after exiting her ult would make her overpowered? Well, It's more like players don't know how to counter her since she was virtually unplayed in Season 0. Her kit is pretty straightforward. Her primary attack shoots projectiles with no damage fall-offs, so she could stand on the other side of the map and spam them. Her right click is a shittier primary attack, and her main appeal is her weather control, which can increase the attack or movement speed of nearby allies. Her ult is also pretty good, being able to suck in all nearby enemies and deal a huge amount of damage. She is pretty good, but she gets countered by half the DPS roster, including the most common heroes. A tier. The big bad Magneto that could literally shred the universe in half if he so willed it. Just like his menacing powers, he has a menacing kit. His primary fire deals AoE damage based on how far away the enemy is, and his secondary fire shoots a stackable cannon that increases the damage based on how many bars you charge up. He also has a shield-like Hulk that he can throw on himself and teammates that build up his cannon bar. He also has the same ability as Doctor Strange, where he throws up a shield that can deflect all incoming projectiles. His ultimate is a defensive and offensive ultimate, drawing in all incoming projectiles and building up his ultimate until he throws it at an enemy. His team-up ability with Wanda gives him a greatsword that deals immense damage, which is good, except for Wanda being there. Magneto is a well-rounded hero that balances offensive and defensive powers well, and can be fit into almost any comp. S tier. My favorite Marvel character in the whole franchise, who could make anyone cry in the cinemas. A fucking Raccoon had a bigger emotional impact than any Disney movie in the last 30 years. Uncharacteristically, he is a support character that has a lot of offensive pressure with his abilities. His BRB revives one ally and throws out ammo packs and rocket jetpacks for a short while. His ultimate deploys an amplifier that gives all nearby teammates a damage boost, and his team-ups can be stupidly broken. His team-up with the Punisher and Winter Soldier gives Rocket an ability that gives them infinite ammo and increased firing speeds, making them shred any opponent nearby. And the team-up with Groot allows him to ride him, not that way, and receive a damage reduction. He also has a lot of movability with his jetpack, allowing him to jump 2 additional times when the cooldown is up. He can also climb walls, and he has a slow fall. All around a really solid pick with lots of utility, mobility, and a really fun playstyle. A tier. Bucky's whole kit revolves around his metal arm, which to be honest, I also would do if I had a robotic arm. His primary attack fires explosive bullets that also affect enemies behind the hit opponent, which can be really good if the enemy groups up. He has a dash ability that knocks up the enemy, a hook that drags enemies close to him, which combos really good with his dash, and then we have his Tainted Voltage, which is a slow attack that can also knock down flying opponents. Bucky's passive reloads his gun and grants bonus health every time he uses an ability, which is really good to drag out fights and eliminate separated players. Finally, Bucky's ult is a ground pound that damages enemies for okay damage, but enemies affected by the ult get marked for culling and will die if their HP bar falls below the light red mark. And every time Bucky kills an opponent he used his ult on, it gets refreshed and he can use it again, so he could hypothetically use it infinitely until the enemy team is fully wiped. They did nerf his damage this season, but gave him a lot of survivability by giving him an extra 25 HP and 10 extra bonus health from his abilities, which is an overall buff in my opinion. Playing this character is like a fever dream and is super fun. I would definitely recommend playing this character if you want to deal high amounts of damage and have fun. A tier. Scarlet Witch, a multi-dimensional threat that can bend the fabric of reality to her own will. Is trash. I'm sorry, okay? She just doesn't do a lot of damage. You just turn off your brain and hold down M1 in the general direction of the enemy and deal some damage. You can literally dive as any character, get a kill, and get away with it even when Wanda is actively attacking you the entire time. She has an alt fire that does AoE damage, that honestly should just be her primary attack, and then we have her stun, which kinda sucks as an area lockdown ability, because you can see it from so far away. Her ult is the best part of her kit, and even that sucks! It takes her 4 whole business days to charge up her ult before exploding. By then, you could put up walls, barriers, or even shields to block the incoming damage. The ult is also incredibly easy to cancel, since every other character has a stun. The only good usage you get out of the ult is catching the enemy off guard. You can't even do that right when she yells "Chaos!" every time she casts it. They did buff Wanda by making her primary fire more effective against squishy characters by increasing the damage from 50 to 60 per second and decreasing the percentage damage from 5% to 3%. So she went from being good against tanks to being good against squishies. She now deals with flankers more easily, but she honestly is just good for her team up with Magneto. D tier. Massive disappointment. Cloak and Daggers, what happens when a genie makes your imaginary friend come to life? They have an excelling kit that I could write a whole essay about, so instead, I'll take them on independently. Dagger is the main healer of the two, being able to heal with every single one of her abilities, even her ult, which heals teammates and damages enemies that walk into the Dash's path. Neato. Then we have Cloak, who is the main damage dealer and utility support. He can weaken enemies while simultaneously making them blind, giving your team a huge offensive boost. He also has the ability to make your teammates immune to any incoming damage, including ults, while giving them a speed boost, which is an incredibly useful ability for disengaging fights, or cancelling out enemy ults. Now, for some reason, NetEase thought it was a good idea to buff the already good support. So they decreased Dagger's Daggerstorm cooldown and gave their ult a 4th dash, because why not? It wasn't as if she was already one of the best supports in the game. S tier. Please don't buff her anymore. StarLord is an amalgamation of different characters from different franchises. Tracer's primary fire from Overwatch 2, Soldier 76's ult also from Overwatch, Valkyrie's jetpack from Apex Legends, and the Hunter's dodge from Destiny 2. Now, I'm not complaining, as StarLord is a fairly balanced hero. I just think it's hilarious that the character's abilities line up with so many already existing characters. He also has his Blaster Barrage, which allows him to turn into a living Beyblade and damage all nearby enemies. My favorite way of playing the hero is to jump into the enemy team and let it rip until I inevitably die. All around a really cool character. You should definitely try him out. A tier. The most annoying character in the entire game, Mantis. Every time I see this character on the enemy team, I just know I won't be able to play the game. Her primary fire deals high amounts of damage, and when she crits someone, she gets a life orb that she can apply to herself or allies that heals them or gives them a damage boost. She heals whenever she uses one of her life orbs, and she gets a movement boost whenever she isn't injured. And now we get to the annoying part, her sleep ability. She can put any opponent to sleep and just throw them out of the game for 5 seconds, which can cancel so many ults and crush so many dreams. Her ultimate provides movement boosts and healing, which gets converted to bonus health if you're already max HP. So if you're diving the enemy team and Mantis pops her ult, you literally cannot die. S tier. God, I hope you get swatted, you annoying bug. Thor Odinson is a really cool melee tank. His whole kit revolves around his hammer, which builds up charges that are used on his other abilities. He has a dash that knocks opponents away, a long-ranged attack, and an ability that consumes all his charges, shooting lightning bolts for 5 seconds. But if you run out of Thor's charges, you're virtually useless for almost 2 whole seconds. There isn't much Thor can do. However, he has some ways of getting his charges back. His passive gives him 1 charge every time he hits an enemy with his primary, or if he waits 1.5 seconds. And every time he uses an ability that consumes a charge, he gets 100 bonus health, so he could be invulnerable if he lands his attacks. He also has his Lightning Realm ability that restores his charges depending on how many enemies he gets inside his dome. Thor's ultimate throws him up in the air and smashes downwards, crushing the ground and any foe caught in the blast. His team-up ability is probably the best thing in his entire kit, giving Captain America and Storm's abilities a damage boost, which is broken now as Storm has become pretty meta. Thor's kit is really good, allowing him to stay alive and soak up most incoming damage with his bonus health. The problem lies with his kit and that it wants him to be up close to the enemy so that he can recharge his abilities to gain bonus health. But half of his abilities are ranged that consume most of his charges, so you've got to throw yourself into the middle of the enemy team just to recharge your abilities. He functions more like a tanky duelist than an actual vanguard, since he has lower health than your average vanguard and fewer options to protect his team. B tier. Finally, we have the Wolverine, who is just a straight up beast. Literally and figuratively, Wolverine is a tanky DPS that is just a straight up Five Nights at Freddy's animatronic. If you ever wanted an engaging horror experience in a hero shooter, then play against the Wolverine. He has two passive abilities that are the foundation of his kit. The first one being his Berserker Rage, where he builds up rage when he deals or takes damage, which boosts the damage of his claw strikes and gives him the clown hairstyle. And then we have his second passive ability, which takes effect when he reaches 0 health, essentially being a second life. The amount of bonus health is based on his rage meter, ranging from 150 bonus health to 300 bonus health on max rage stacks. Now we get to the rest of the kit. His primary attack is the claws, where he slashes at enemies, building up rage. He has a dash ability that unleashes a claw strike that does minimal damage, but builds up his rage a lot. An ability that when activated reduces all incoming damage. And finally, we have his FNAF jump scare. This ability has spooked the shit out of so many players that it straight up has become even scarier than some actual horror games. This ability is super fun to use, but super annoying to be used on. The Feral Leap grabs the enemy player and drags them in the same direction Wolverine jumps in. When you land, Wolverine will use his Berserker Claws to continuously slash at you, which kills you 90% of the time. The best way, and the only way, you should use this ability is to run behind the enemy lines to kidnap enemy players and bring them back to your team. Kidnapping someone and then executing them is one of the funnest ways to play the game, as it almost always guarantees a kill and almost always tilts the enemy.
So unlucky.
His team-up ability with the Hulk allows him to be thrown by Hulk, getting a second leap. And with this second leap, you can get thrown into the enemy lines and grab an enemy for free. It's way too funny to pass up on. And for some reason, the devs decided to buff him as if he wasn't broken already as it was. He now has an additional 50 HP and has 10% less damage reduction from his second passive. But just giving this character 50 extra HP is just broken. Oh yeah, this character also has an ult. Honestly, you don't need the ult because the rest of the kit carries, but I'm still gonna talk about it since it's a part of his set. His ultimate allows him to grab a player and slam dunk them into the ground. And the damage of the ultimate is based on how many rage stacks he has built up. The ultimate combos great with the rest of his abilities, so you could pull off some really cool combinations. Honestly, this character has transcended the S tier and is in a league of his own, so he gets placed in the GOAT tier. And there we go. A full list of all the Marvel rival characters based on viability and fuckery. This tier list is subject to change as new patches come out, so take it with a grain of salt. Thanks for watching. Comment down below if my takes are trash or a smash. And please subscribe as we're almost at 1,000 subscribers. Have a good day!